G'day guys, Mac with the Circle, and today I want to take a look at the Deredeo pattern Dreadnought. In fact, I want to look at all the variants and the current rules that have been released for it, because about 3 weeks ago now, it had a few new weapons introduced, one of which is very underwhelming. And I want to talk about some thoughts I have about utilising Deredeo as that kind of thing. I have touched off on it before in the Getting Started in Horus Heresy series with you and your Legion Dreadnoughts. But again, because some changes have happened, I want to add a few little insights to it. So, our main types of Deredeos really just comes down to what arms you give it and what backpack or back-mounted weapon you're giving it. In this case, you have the autocannons, the plasma weapons, the Volkite weapons, and of course the missiles of choice, or the adamantic pervaiz, but we'll talk about that more later. On top of that, we also have the Arachnus Heavy Las Cannon Battery as our fourth arm weapon, and the one you probably see the least. So, rules-wise, the Deredeo, it's a gunpowder machine. It's all about how much it can shoot at things, hence weapon skill is lower, the initiative is lower, the attacks are low when you compare it to other Dreadnoughts. But it makes up for it with Ballistic Skill 5, which is not great. It's no better really than any other Dreadnought. But it is front armor 13, which is nice, like a Contemptor. Where it really comes into its own though is the amount of firepower it has. It has a built-in smoke launcher that you'll never use, a built-in searchlight that you'll never use. It has extra armor, which, yeah, it's nice to have. But not too often that it really comes into play, because being a Dreadnought that's designed to be immobile most of the time and just be firing from a fixed position, it's not really a drama if you can't move because you've been vehicle stunned. But it's nice to have it. Also, it has adamantic shielding, which means it's going to get a nice invulnerable save, and it's going to blow up a little bit bigger when you destroy the thing. Yeah. But the helical targeting array is pretty cool. Now, the helical targeting array is this little rule down here, which is if you choose not to run or move in your own turn, in the next turn, if you want, you gain Skyfire and Interceptor for the entire game turn. And this is for all of its weapons except the Heavy Bolter / Heavy Flamer that's built into its nipple guns. Now, on those nipple guns, if you're Dark Angels, you're laughing, because you can turn those nipple guns into a very, very nasty poisoned ammunition, the nucleic acid rounds, which is good. And if you're an Iron Warriors player, I suggest taking the shredding ammunition, which has pinning, obviously at the cost of losing a bit of an AP value, going down to AP 5. But hey, it's worth it, because it gives you that pinning option. Which, I mean, if the Deredeo is not killing something with its normal weapons, maybe the chance at the occasional pinning check is... it's about as good as any other stat you're going to have. It's not likely to come up, but you do have enough shots with it that maybe it'll happen. Still, just something I like to throw out there. Unfortunately, because it specifies that it's a twin-linked Heavy Bolter / Heavy Flamer, you can't go swapping it out for things like Assault Cannons for Blood Angels, which is a bit of a downer, because one of these with an Assault Cannon, twin-linked, built into its nipples, ooh, that would be nasty. In any case, weapons-wise, for our main gun arms, as I said, you obviously come with the Anvilus Pattern Autocannon Battery. You also have the option of upgrading to either the single twin-linked Hellfire Plasma Carronade, which we're just going to call the Plasma option because it's quicker, the Volkite option, which is a Volkite Falconet battery, or a single Arachnus Heavy Las Cannon battery, which is the 2 Las Cannons which are not twin-linked, operating as a single type of Las Cannon. You can also give the Deredeo Armoured Ceramite. Don't suggest it. Generally, if something's dropping into melter gun range to get a shot off at this thing, you're probably in trouble anyway. So yeah, if anything, just aim the Armor 13 front towards them and pray you kill whatever is there. Especially if they're armed for close combat, because if they get into close combat with you, you're in trouble. For its backpack options, you have, of course, the Aeoli missile launcher, which fires garlic at your enemies, Adamantic pervaiz, which is a defensive option, and the option of 4 Boreas air defense missiles, which are a one-use only missile. Now, let's get into the main guns, because here's where all the juiciness is. So the Anvilus autocannon battery. You've got 48 inches of range, which is excellent. The strength is 8, which is excellent. The AP is 4, which is mediocre. It's not terrible. Terrible is like AP 5/6 territory. AP 4 is like, okay, you get an instant kill Solar Auxilia, you're going to instant kill Militia, you're going to instant kill a lot of Mechanicum stuff, or at least bypass their armor saves, which is good. It is a heavy 4, so you're getting a decent amount of shots out of it. It's twin-winged, so you're going to get rerolls to hits on Ballistic Skill 5, so you're probably going to hit. And it's Sundering, which means you're going to get to reroll failed armor penetration rolls. Which, you know, you are going to penetrate things, because it is Strength 8. The downside of this is, though, at being Strength 8 and only AP 4, is you'll never get those delicious instant kills of Marines by having AP 3. I mean, yeah, okay, a multi-wound Marine that does roll a 1 or a 2 on their armor save will be instant killed by it, but still, it's unlikely, and you shouldn't just bet on the unlikely happening. And, of course, the fact that it's AP4 means you're not going to be able to instantly destroy vehicles, and this is very important when it comes to aircraft. When an aircraft comes onto the battlefield, you want the most chance of penetrating it and rolling up a destroyed result, because this vehicle can intercept. And you want to have this thing intercepting before the enemy flyer, say a Lightning with 4 Kraken penetrators, for example. You want to be intercepting it before that thing unleashes that deadly load, which is going to destroy anything short of a Titan on arrival. That's why the next weapon comes into play, the Arachnus Heavy Las Cannon Battery, which has the same excellent range of 48 inches. It has an even higher strength of 10. Now, strength 10 is important because there is a lot of toughness 5 shit in the Horus Heresy. For example, you have Iron Hands, which negate the strength of all weapons hitting them by 1. That would mean that a strength 8 weapon drops to essentially a strength 7 weapon, therefore you can't instant kill Iron Hands miniatures. Well, this weapon doesn't have that problem because you're only dropping it to strength 9 against them. Tough titties. Also, being strength 10, it can overcome things like Spartan flare shields. This thing can penetrate a Spartan frontally, even though it's the equivalent of armor 15. Yeah, that's strong. Also, if you are facing just a regular Land Raider or anything that's armor 14 from the front, 4 up to cause some kind of damage. It's a 50-50 split on if you're going to cause damage. And with 2 shots, chances are you are probably going to cause damage. It's excellent. You also have the Exoshock special rule on it, which is if you successfully score a penetrating hit, you roll a d6. And if you roll a 4+, you get an automatic second penetrating hit. Now, the next important thing is this is AP 2 and Heavy 2. So potentially, even though it's only firing 2 shots, which is half the number of shots of the autocannon battery, if you manage to penetrate with those 2 shots, theoretically, you're going to get an extra 2 penetrations, which means you can potentially get 4 penetrations, and any one of those rolls a 6, it's kaboom for whatever vehicle you penetrated, which is something the Anvilus just cannot do, even if all 4 of its shots do penetrate. And keep in mind, there is a big difference between Strength 8 and Strength 10 when it comes to penetrating things. An Anvilus cannot penetrate a Land Raider. It will struggle to penetrate other dreadnoughts like Contemptors, Leviathans, other Deredeos, especially Custodes dreadnoughts like the Teletubby. These are dangerous units, and you need something high strength to hurt them. Say you're facing Mechanicum, for example, and they have a Thanatar. A Thanatar, you're gonna want something like the Anvilus, because being Strength 10 and being AP2, the Arachnus being Strength 10 and being AP2, it will wound a Thanatar on 2s, and the Thanatar will only get its Adamantic save against it, whereas the Anvilus autocannon is only going to wound it on 4s, and it's going to get its normal 2-up armor save against it. This is obviously very, very bad for you. So the Arachnus is an absolute monster when it comes to destroying vehicles and those really tough monstrous creatures, and maybe even hurting demons of the Ruined Storm. The downside is 50 points. It's an expensive upgrade, but in my opinion, it's a very valid and very worthwhile upgrade. Now the next weapon we're going to look at is the Hellfire Plasma Carronade. Now the Hellfire Plasma Carronade, which is this sort of lovely looking one here. In fact, I'll quickly try and find a 3D model of it that I can spin around for everyone. Oh, good enough. As you can see, really nice looking weapon. I have one sitting behind me that I'm thinking of doing for my White Scars, just for a bit of fun. Even though they don't really use dreadnoughts, it'd be nice to just have one of each type of dreadnought for them to use if it so comes up. In any case, you have two fire modes. Both of them are the same range as a plasma cannon, so I'm going to compare it to the plasma cannon because I think it's only fair. Sustained fire is Strength 7, AP 2, Heavy 4. Okay, that's not too bad. And keep in mind, it's a twin-linked Hellfire Plasma Carronade. So that's 4 Strength 7 AP2 shots and it's twin-linked. I think this is not as good as the Anvil's autocannon at glancing vehicles, because it's not Strength 8 and it doesn't have Sunder, but it does have the ability to blow up vehicles thanks to being AP2 if you do get through. So it's an option, but less likely. Its main strength is in that, being AP2, this can kill Terminators, can kill monstrous creatures. At Strength 7, it will still be ignoring the armor saves of things like Solar Auxilia and Militia, and not allowing any Feel No Pain rolls on. Heavy 4 is a good amount of shots, and again, twin-linked. You're probably going to hit, you're probably going to wound with all of those shots against Marine equivalents. Now the maximal fire mode is a Heavy 1, but it's Large Blast and Gets Hot. So the Gets Hot, really hard to ignore, but then again it is a twin-linked weapon, so you're going to get to reroll on your Large Blast the Scatter, and your Ballistic Skill 5, so good chance you're going to land the blast pretty damn close to where you want to land it. Now, it's a large blast, so 5 inches, so it's much bigger than a plasma cannon, this blast. It's Strength 7, it's AP2, this is a Terminator killer. This is a very nasty weapon, but it does get hot, and this is where I think the sustained fire comes into play, because although it's less raw alpha, it's more consistent. Because okay, you're probably going to hit less items with the shot, but you're never risking that gets hot, and you're never risking that scattering off target. So either or are both good options, but is by far better than a plasma cannon. Is it worth the, I believe, 35 points? Yes, it's 35 points. Not sure. I'd say yes, because a plasma cannon itself is something like a 15 to 20 point upgrade for a Space Marine, and this is giving you essentially a couple, maybe equivalent of 3 plasma cannons worth of firepower. I mean, one large blast roughly covers as many models as 3 plasma cannon shots combined, small blasts. So, yeah, and being twin-linked, of course, also helps. Yeah, I reckon it's pretty good. And of course, the sustained fire is something you can shoot at aircraft, and Strength 7 AP2 against aircraft is actually kind of deadly, because Armor 11 is a very common armor value on flyers. Now we get to the turd of the family, the Volkite Falconet Battery. 30 inches range. It's bizarre, but Volkite weapons always have bizarre ranges, so that's fine. Strength 7. That's pretty good. AP 5. Ooh. Heavy 6, Deflagrate, and Neural Overload. So what do these mean? Well, first of all, range is fine. 30 inches, it's the weakest range out of all of its weapons, even weaker than the Heavy Bolters that it has for nipples. The only thing that might get lower is if you equip it with Heavy Flamers. And the only people doing that are generally Salamanders or Death Guard players, because they both get quite the bonus on those weapons. Obviously referring to, of course, the Promethean Born, giving them +1 strength in the Salamander's army, and then giving them chem munitions if you're Death Guard, both of which are great options. But A regular Volkite Culverin has much better range, 42 inches off the top of my head. It's 1 less strength, but otherwise, and only 4 shots, but otherwise the same. Yes, you have Neural Overload, and any infantry unit that suffers at least 1 wound from this weapon must immediately make a leadership test once all attacks have been resolved. If the leadership test is failed, this unit may only fire snapshots in the following turn. Sounds good in theory, but in reality, the average leadership in Heresy is 9. The average roll on 2d6 is a 7. So do the maths on that. You're generally going to be firing this at big units of something like Militia or Auxilia, that kind of thing, which is great in theory. I mean, Militia are going to be scared at AP5, but at AP5, Auxilia are not going to be scared. Mechanicum are not going to be scared. Yeah, okay, you have the chance to spill over some wounds with the Deflagrate, but it's just not as good as... I'd rather just 2 Volkite Culverins. Just 2. Just 2 regular Volkite Culverins. I mean, I could get a Contemptor Dreadnought with 2 twin-linked Volkite Culverins, and I'm going to get more shots, and I'm going to cost far less points than this miniature. And I'm not going to be occupying a heavy support slot, which is hotly contested in the Heresy. I'm going to be occupying an elite slot, which is nowhere near as hotly contested. And of course, as I say, always bring a Contemptor to the battle. So, the Volkite Falconet battery, for me, it's a meh. It's not bringing anything new to the table. All the other weapons I previously described are good at something. The Anvilus, it's good at killing things like rhinos, or it can hurt Thalax, it can fuck over Solar Auxilia, can potentially instant kill Marines if they fail armor saves. The Arachnus, it's a vehicle devastator. You fire this thing into aircraft especially, they're going down. The Hellfire Plasma Carronade, oh boy, you don't want to be a Terminator or anything like that when this thing's around. That's all good and dangerous. But the Falconet, it's not doing anything better than what the others do. I mean, the Hellfire Plasma Carronade is probably going to pay off for you more over a game. In general, because this Volkite Falconet battery, it's not even twin-linked. So, you're going to be hitting less shots with it. Out of your heavy 6, you're only going to get 5 hits generally, which is only 1 better than the Hellfire Plasma Carronade, and people are getting saves against this. So, I just don't see the worth of it. And, I mean, Neural Overload, it's just as likely to go off as the Shred rounds are on your Iron Warriors Heavy Bolters, which is like, maybe? Oh well, after all that, let's move along. So, the Aeoli Missile Launcher, okay, the Ilos Missile Launcher, apart from being a lovely dipping sauce for him having something like chicken tenders or something like that, it's a range 60-inch weapon, strength 6, AP 3, heavy 3, pinning with independent tracking. That's really good. So, okay, independent tracking, what does that mean? It means you can choose a different target for it to what you chose for all the rest of the weapons on the Dreadnought. Really good. Say there's an aircraft over there and an aircraft over here, well, you can split your fire. Fire one set of guns one way, fire this missile launcher the other. Fantastic. Say it's late in the game, and oh, there's an enemy unit over here and it needs to be dealt with. There's, one last guy sitting on objective, but I really need most of his firepower to fire at this other squad over here. Well, fire the missile one way, fire the rest of your guns the other way. Fantastic. Other things the independent tracking allows you to do is when you fire at vehicles, the attack always hits the side armour. And it always ignores intervening obstacles to line of sight in open terrain. What does that mean? It means you're pretty much always going to shoot at the thing and no terrain is really going to stop you. Really, really good. So, great options. Strength 6, that's golden zone for killing infantry, because it's 2s to wound. That's the golden zone, and strength 6 is also ignores feel no pain for Mechanicum, for Solar Auxilia and for Militia. AP 3, that's ignores marine power armor. You have a weapon here that's 2s to wound and ignores power armor? Oh, please. Heavy 3, that's a good number of shots. Not great, not terrible either. This is a superior heavy bolter. 60 inches range is monstrous. Great. it's pinning as well. Now combine this with the previously mentioned pinning available to you on the Iron Warrior's heavy bolters, and together that's giving you a lot of chances of getting pinning off, because you're forcing multiple rolls. So all in all, fantastic weapon option, and it makes it onto most Deredeos because of that. The next weapon up is the Boreas Air Defense Missile. Now, much reduced range, but you're getting an AP2 crack missile. That's really good. It's got the Heat Seeker special rule, which is Jinx saves cannot be taken against this. Ooh, that's nasty. But because it's a missile, something like a Xiphon, which has a chaff launcher, is going to get an invulnerable save against it anyway, which is not so great. It's independent tracking, just like the Aeoli missile launcher, and it's one use only, and you only have 4 shots with them. So, it's a toss-up. This more likely to be able to hit that side armor on things like Spartans, sure, but it's only strength 8, you're going to glance them. It's not got 2d6 armor pen. Yeah, okay, against flyers, it's probably the slightly better weapon, but overall, I definitely have to say that the ability for the Aeos missile launcher to just consistently churn out the damage and do it all game, and at 60 inches, oh, yes, please. That's the weapon I'm talking about, and this is what my mind does when I process things. I go, what are the options available to me, and what are the targets I'm going to face? And you think about it and you go, the ability to hit something in the flank is great until you realise that the sort of vehicles that you want to be hitting in the flank, it's not strong enough to defeat anyway. And in which case, it's really not that much better than the Aeolus missile launcher is. And at least with the Garlic Aeoli missile launcher, you know, it's not going to pen things like rhinos with great ease, true. But if you're firing a Boreas air defense missile into a rhino, you're wasting that missile, most likely. That's not worth it. Maybe against something like a Vindicator? Something like that, or a Medusa? That pesky, large template sort of weapons, yeah, it'd be pretty handy, but you don't know you're going to face those in most battles. Now the last thing to cover off on, of course, is the Adamantic Pervaiz, which is helpfully featured here at Forge World's own open day 3 years ago. Never released. But now you know what it looks like, and if people didn't believe that there really was a kit, yes, this is the kit. Forge World previewed it, they never released it. But you can make your own, perhaps with spare void shields off a Titan. That'd be a good choice. Or, you can probably find something out there. The Tau probably have many shield drones or something like that could be converted to work quite well. The option's up to you. But what does it actually do? Well, it gives the Deredeo an increased boost on its own invulnerable save, a 4+ against shooting attacks, in fact. The Deredeo also creates an aura around it, which is models within 3 inches of its base get an invul save of a 6+ against shooting attacks, or it boosts the invulnerable save they already possess by +1 to a maximum of a 3+. It has no effect on close combat, doesn't stack with anything else, and it basically has no effects apart from boosting your defensiveness against shooting, is what it boils down to. Also, if you blow up the Dreadnought, it adds an extra +D3 to its blast radius rather than +1 if it explodes, and the explosion has a strength of 5. Is it a good choice? Well, it boils down to the cost. And the cost is 50 points, which makes it a bad choice. 3 inches is way too small of a bubble on the Derrida. If it was a 6-inch bubble, fantastic. There is so much stuff you could do with this. But 3 inches, it's also gimped by only affecting friendly infantry. So you can't use it to protect your rapier weapons. You can't use it to protect your vehicles in the back line. You can't use it to protect objectives of some description. This is too minor of a buff, and I've always wanted to run a Deredeo with an Adamantic Pervaiz and a Hellfire Plasma Carronade, because I think that could be a great combination. But with the current rules for the Pervaiz, which realistically should just be a flat invul save of 5+, not 6+, to anyone who doesn't have one, and to people who do have one, yeah, +1. It should also be a 6-inch radius. Do those changes, it would be worth it for plus 50 points and turning it into something that if it dies, it blows up everything around it far more efficiently. No, that's not great at all. So, what are we going to boil today's episode down to? Well, out of the models, clearly these three are the ones. Well, I say these three. It should really be the Arachnus, the Plasma, and the Anvilus. That's the order of cannons. They're the weapons you want. This Hellfire Volkite thing here, no, just no. It's bad. It's all round bad choice. You don't want it. If you want to make a unit like this, go for a Contemptor Dreadnought. It's going to be just as good. Give a Contemptor Dreadnought with 2 Twin-Linked Volkite Culverins and some Hunter Killers or a Havoc Launcher, and you'll be way happier for it. And it'll be way, way cheaper in points. And probably in actual dollars too, now that I think about it. Or pounds, or whatever your currency is. So, if I'm going to be building a Deredeo Dreadnought, I'm going to think to myself, what do I want to achieve from it? In, say, my White Scars, for example, I probably want to have that AP2. The Hellfire Plasma Carronade is definitely the way forward, because I obviously have mostly moderate to high AP weapons, Heavy Bolters being about the best average weapon, the occasional Plasma Cannon pops up in the Force, so I need to be able to kill things like Terminators at a distance. Something like a big squad of Red Butchers causes me a lot of problems as a White Scars player. So I need to bring along a weapon that's going to consistently deliver AP2 shooting, and I think the Hellfire Plasma Carronade is a great option. For the missile type on the back, because again we've established it's not going to be an adamantic pervaiz, I'm going to go with the Aioli Missile Launcher. The ability to fire garlic 60 inches, defeating vampires with ease, very great weapon. Strength 6 AP3, the ability to constantly be firing it all throughout the game with no restrictions. Perfect choice. Whereas the Boreas air defense missiles, they're just not worth it. Now, it's also giving me a pretty solid anti-air weapon as well. 6 is not great, but it's not terrible either. And of course, the Volkite Falconet is no good at that task, so that's wiped out completely. If I think I'm going to be facing something like Mechanicum, there's going to be a lot of Thalax, or I'm facing Solar Auxilia, that kind of thing, I'm probably going to lean more towards the Anvilus Autocannon, just for the ability to bypass most armor saves with the maximum amount of shots, and I'm going to be able to deal with some of the light armor. That's pretty handy, but I'd be edging more towards the Hellfire Plasma Carronade more often out of the two. But if I know I'm going to be facing a lot of vehicles that need to be destroyed, I'm facing something like Iron Hands, or I'm facing Mechanicum Force, which has gone really tank heavy, like Krios battle tanks, that kind of thing, or Solar Auxilia tank heavy army, the Arachnus heavy las cannons is definitely the way to go. And again, going to be supplementing that with the Ailos Missile Launcher, because that's going to be giving you the shots to make up for the fact that you've only got 2 shots on your main gun. So it means if you do come into conflict with something like those Space Marines, instead of having to waste just your heavy 2 shots on them, you can be firing those Strength 6 AP3 missiles at them, and you're still putting out a decent amount of firepower. You're not being sort of pigeonholed into just firing those las cannons at vehicles. So that's my suggestions on building a Deredeo Dreadnought, and the things you need to look for when you're using one. Now, keep in mind, this is my opinion only, they're not always perfect, but I'm pretty good at this stuff. I've been doing it for a long time, guys. And as always, if you've got any questions, hit me up in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all next time.